Thank you for watching this video. Please click on the like and subscribe buttons so that I can continue to make more videos like this. Okay, we're on sheet FA02 and it's the fire alarm floor plan. Once again, we have our stamp of approval here from the Fire Marshal of Peoria, Arizona, and we're approved. And it has the date, of course. We need to look over all the notes and everything, and we really don't have any on this page right now. Some nice things we do have. We have our device address legend, and that explains how the numbers work. It's nice to have that. Our fire alarm cable schedule, we went over that on the last page. These tables down here are voltage drop calculations and current calculations, and that gets more into the design and engineering of this project, and that's really beyond the scope of our reading our blueprints. Now I do want to point out, we have up here the triangle with the 1 in it and the triangle with the 1, which is a revision, and that talks into some engineering with some voltage drops and over here. So again, we're not going to discuss those right now. That's not part of the lesson. Here and here we have some one-line diagrams for the fire alarm system, and we'll discuss those in depth. Now let's look here. Here's the entire building, and here's the riser room. Now it says here, new power supply and existing control panel, Gainwell 602, which is this here, which we're going to talk about later. So this NACPS, new power supply, our fire alarm control panel is going to be located in a riser room, which means you have to get a conduit to go from here over to our build-out area. It also means we have to have a conduit coming back for the return loop, because they must be in separate conduits. In other words, you can't go out to a junction box, run it through, and then come back from the junction box. It has to go out, run your loop, and then come back in a different conduit. Let's go up here and take a closer look at our one-line diagrams. Okay, now what I decided to do was to look at all of these together, because I think we're going to have to, it's going to help us with going back and forth on some things. So let's first look down here at the existing Gainwell 602 control panel located in fire riser room. Okay, now you're going to have to follow along on your prints, but I'm going to go slowly so that you'll be able to do that. Okay, well, the first one in line is 1001, has like an S and a little hexagon. That's a smoke detector. It says exterior. 1002, kind of like a W, and that's water flow box. Now these symbols again are on the previous page, FA01. This next, the third one, 1003, has kind of like a T. Okay, that's a fire sprinkler tamper. Okay, that's 1004 is like an F. That's an addressable manual pull station. 1005 is like an F, and so is 1006. Addressable manual pull stations. These are like EX. That means existing. I said exterior earlier, correct that. These stand for existing. Open up the page here, and we're going to look at our devices in here. The first three, the smoke detector, the water flow box, and the fire sprinkler tamper, are in here, the riser room. It says existing control panel. This works, this is not in the scope of the work area, as you can see this, but this goes for the whole building as it ties in. The next one. Okay, let's hold our print out there. Our next one here is this 1004, and that was an addressable manual pull station. That's at this door here. And then 1005 was out here. Okay, now let's go to 1006. That's in the scope of our work, and that was here by the front door. Now remember, we had a note that said we were going to relocate that, and we covered that earlier. Now also we had a note saying we were going to have another one by this exit door. That is ones that we're going to have to install. So those are things that you're going to have to work with. Now we don't have the entire details on that, but it said we were going to have to work with the engineers and the architects, and of course we're going to have to work with the City of Peoria Fire Marshal. And typically the engineers and architects, they're going to be the ones that submit their drawing to the fire marshal, and then the fire marshal will stamp it with their approval, and then we will do the building of it. Okay, now that we've covered that, let's look here. Okay, remember we have a kind of a S by the line. That's a broken line, which means a break in the conduit, but this still runs together and loops together. We have here smoke fire damper. Okay, that's what that SFD stands for, and the M stands for addressable monitor module. And we have 1010, same thing. Now if we go over here, we have 1010M and 1009M, addressable monitor module. So now these smoke fire dampers are going to be, it has them with this 1006 right here, okay, existing, but we were going to relocate that, and we're also going to put one on the back door somewhere, wherever the fire marshal tells us to, and that will, I'm going to guess, most likely be on this loop, because that's where they have those pull stations. That's what that F stands for, a pull station. That's where that will be. Let's take a look now at the NACPS. Okay, we have a one-line diagram, and we're given here, right here, 1B. That's on our cable schedule, which is right here. Okay, B tells the type of cable, the 14 gauge 2 conductor FPL cable, and also this one is also a cable 1B as well. And that, again, we have that here. We have here a device address legend. We've covered that, but we have it also here, and we're going to look at some things here. Our first device is S1-1. Now remember, okay, this S1 is our circuit name, and this is address 1. So let's trace this out, because these are all, circuit 1 is all we have here, and addresses 1 through 9. So we are going to trace these out through here, and since we have the same symbols, we'll be able to look these up and take a closer look at this section of the print right now. Okay, so we're going to trace this out. So we know, if we take a quick look, we have a horn for our first device on our circuit, and we have the horn right here, 30 candela. Our second S1-2 is right here. Where's S1-3? I'm going to let you do some of the work. Okay, it's right here. Find S1-4. It's right here. We're looking for S1-5. It's right here. S1-6. Okay, it's right here. S1-7. Here it is, inside the men's restroom. S1-8. Here we are in the ladies' restroom. S1-9. Okay, here we are. Now if you look at your one-line diagram, that's the last of the devices. So it has to go from here back to the riser room into the NACPS panel. And once again, we want to mention it has to be in a separate conduit. You can't have a junction box in here where they both meet and it goes back and comes back in the same panel. It has to be a separate conduit that goes back here from the last device all the way back to the NACPS panel. What you need to do is go from device to device and see how this must be looped. Now you must build it this way in this sequence, because the monitor is going to be computer operated and these devices are addressable. You can't come in and say, oh, well, this is going to be 3 and 4. What difference does it make? Well, they're in different rooms. Okay, 4 is in the break room and 3 is out here in the open office area. You can see this is 7, it's in the men's room. Okay, so you can't switch it with 7 and 8. Even though they're close to each other, you have to keep them in a certain order because they're addressable. It's like your mail has to get delivered to your address, not your neighbor's address. So that's what addressable means, that specific location. So that's what you have to do. When you got the plan, you have to look at it, especially if it's completely in conduit, where you have to have conduit from each of the boxes to the next box. That's where it becomes very important to run it in the proper order. What you need to do is to look at this, see where your devices are going to be located, and then install it so that your conduit goes in the proper sequence 1 through 9 as you're told to on this panel, or whatever your panel schedule tells you to do. So that finishes up sheet FA02, the fire alarm floor plan for us. In the next part of this lesson, we're going to talk about red line drawings. So right now, I want you to take your set of blueprints, and I want you to turn to sheet E0.1. And when you get there, go to the electrical general notes, and we're going to look at note 22. Okay, so you should be on sheet E0.1, electrical general notes on the right-hand side, note 22. Note 22 says, upon completion of the project, all changes shall be documented, and red-lined as-built drawings shall be turned over to the owner by the contractor. So what a red line drawing is, or it's called an as-built drawing, that's as this project is built. We've told you that the architect will draw this out, but they don't specify exactly the runs, the paths you need to take for your conduit, or where every junction box is going to be. And also we mentioned sometimes circuits get added and things like that, and so we need to make notification of those. This is what the red line drawings do. You can follow along on sheet E4.1. And what I've done, I've made another copy of this, and I've started some red line drawings on this sheet, and I'm going to show you some things that I've done on how this was built out and how you should do red line drawings. Let's look at this area right now, and we're going to look at some things that I put in with the red line drawings. Okay, so we're down here at the bottom of our sheet. On our prints, we have our black lines showing our conduits, our pipe between conduits, like there, and throughout, even here, and showing home runs. Now a red line shows how things were built, and again, sometimes things are a little bit different. As you can see here, I've got some red lines that I've drawn in with a pencil, and again, it's just a red pen. And what you can do, take a mechanical pencil if you like, and maybe pencil it in first and then go over it, and you can even use a felt tip marker. Also, I like to use a stencil when I make boxes and straight lines. I've seen some people that just kind of just draw the lines and they're not too straight. For your boxes, you can get away with it if you're neat without stenciling it. I prefer to stencil it. And another tool we're going to use is this whiteout marker. Let me show you the whiteout marker, how we use that right now. We're down here, see this circuit 14. And this is home run, E5, 14, 16, 18. Now on the plan, it had it here and it says go home with it. Well, on our red line drawings, we're going to show the conduit sometimes. It depends on your style of red line drawing. If you can get a straight line with an arrow to the panel, that's good enough too. It just depends on the drawings and the style. There's really no set style. They just must be understandable. One thing you have to do is you need to connect all your junction boxes together. That's the real important thing. If you can find the junction boxes and which junction boxes are connected to the other junction boxes, then they can get the wires and everything in there if they have to do any kind of remodel. And that's really the most important part. But anyway, look at this. We have 14. Now on your page, you're going to see there's a black line going up to here where there was conduit, and black line here where there was conduit. Well, I've taken the whiteout marker and got rid of that, because the way it was built was a junction box here, and then from this junction box they went to the panel. From this junction box it went to this circuit, and then from this junction box they went here. So they didn't go from here to here. Then from here they put in another junction box and went to here, so we could take this out. we could take this out going to here, because we put another junction box. Then we went up here, put one in the middle, went and got these. So you can see that the red line has to be done to show how it was built. Now here's another thing we put on the red line. Over here I've got a circle with a 1 in it. That's a keyed red line note. Just like we make keyed notes, we can make keyed notes on our red line. And it's pointing to a box with a J in it, and I made that a junction box. You don't have to put a J in there, it's pretty understandable typically, but I also made a symbol note for that. But let's check out what keyed note 1 says in our red line notes. Here we are at our red line notes and symbols. Keyed note 1 says home run E5 circuits 2, 4, and 6 junction box on wall underground conduit to Walker duct. So that's describing that installation. And if we go back, we're going to take a closer look at that and see what they did. Okay, so from our keyed note 1, we were saying that the junction box was on top of this wall, and then the conduit went through the wall underground to the Walker duct. Now remember, dotted line for conduit is underground, so we're going to show that on our red line diagram as well. Now, even though this junction box isn't drawn exactly on the wall, that's okay, and it may not be exactly over the door. What you want to do, though, is make sure you get this, let's say within one ceiling tile, like a 2x4 ceiling tile, get it really close. I mean, be as precise and as accurate as you can. But the main thing is that if you get it really close to the, if somebody opens the ceiling tile, then they look at the junction box and they can read what's on the junction box on the cover, then you've done your job well if they can do that and most of the time hit it with that first tile. Okay, so that's what we showed here. Now we had a note 2. Right here was our note 2. So let's take a look at what note 2 says on our red line notes and symbols. So here we are now at red line note number 2. It says unistrut on wall for home run conduits. So that note is pointing out that when they did that, they have unistrut and they have several conduits on that wall, and instead of just overlapping them on the drawing, they're pointing that out. And again, when you go from junction box to panel, that'll be very clear when somebody's actually looking at the diagram. Okay, so we know that we have the unistrut that was running here, and those go to the kitchen circuits. And we'll take a look at those a little bit later as we move to the higher part of the diagram. Okay, now there's something else I want to point out to you while we're right here. Let's go right here on your diagram in 105 in this office. Let's take a closer look at that right now. Okay, the reason I have a red line right there is we don't know what that circuit is, because it looks like it's covered up by that room number. It could be 8, but if you take a wider look and go up here, it's circuit 10. And we have on our home runs 8, 10, and 12. So let's try and figure out a way to determine what that circuit should be. The red line diagram, we're showing what has been built. So, and I should have pointed this out earlier on the power print. That would have been a good time when we were on that page the first time to show this, but I didn't really catch it till I was redlining. But the thing is, when you build this, you got to determine, is this circuit 10 or circuit 8? So let's find a good way to do that if you don't have somebody like the electrical engineer or the architect or somebody like that telling you. Okay, so we're taking a broader look at this now. Let's go, we have circuit 8 down here starting. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 receptacles. Now for 10, it goes all the way to here, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so if we make this circuit 10, then we have 7 and 7, and that splits up that load. So doing that, I'm going to call this 10. I'm going to write it in as neat as I possibly can. So I would have done this when I was building it, would have made that 10 and would have made that notation. Now, since we've made a notation here, we have to go make a notation on our red line notes and symbols as well. So let's do that right now. Right, key note 3, this receptacle is on circuit. Okay, so we've made a decision to call that circuit 10. So we're just going to write that in. I'm going to try and do it kind of neat from this angle. So now let's go back to the drawing. Okay, so now we're back at the drawing, but now there's one more thing that I want to do here. So now we're going to take a closer look at that receptacle again and show you what that is. Okay, so we've redlined it and we've made a note on it. So now what we got to do is take our whiteout marker here, and I have to make this connection between these two disappear. And it's a little hard writing at this angle. But see, I'm just taking out that conduit right there. And even though it looks a little bit murky with black, it's okay to leave it like that. Because with the red line, they're going to know it was a change, but yet they can still see what the original drawing was. In some instances, they may still need to have that information at some time. It's okay just as long as you get most of it there and they can see, okay, that's what it used to be, but here's how we built it, we've redlined it. Okay, so now let's go take a look up at our break room because we have some redlining in there we want to look at. Okay, so here we are up in the break room area. Now we talked about this circuit running here earlier and how we had to whiten this one in and how we ran our 14 there, and we set a J box up here, hit 16, 14, hit the 16 on the wall. And remember we had the millwork diagram and we had to locate that circuit. And then we go up, we got some other plugs later on, and this continues. But now, let's look here. We have E5, 24, 26, 28, 30. And this arrow is a home run. It's pretty straightforward. What we've done, I've just made a red line circle, pointed over here, and remember that note 2, we had a unistrut on the wall. So what we did, we ran the unistrut on the wall, then a conduit on the unistrut, and we just dropped a J box here for these circuits, and then from the junction box we went here, made another J box for 28 and 30. So we got 24, 26, 28, and 30 in the same J box. Up here for E5, 40, and 42, we didn't really have to do any redlining because it says from here make a home run, and it's just these two circuits in the conduit, and it's basically from this plug to the panel there aren't any junction boxes in there, so you don't have to do anything. But that also ran along this wall here on the unistrut, and with note 2 somebody could easily figure that out. Again, you don't have to put everything on the red line drawing. It's just that note 22, remember, said the changes, the significant changes. That's the kind of things that we have to put in here. What I want to do now is kind of move up to the reception area because we have to look at a few things there with some redlining. Alright, now this line here, remember the circuit 16 and 14 came up from the break room, and it comes here, makes a turn, and they put a junction box in here. Now if you remember, we had this area here of a soffit, a hard lid ceiling, and we can't have any junction boxes over this. So they had to come out over here, find a structural member to put the junction box. And then they went to this circuit 16, and then from the same junction box, they went out to this circuit 16 instead of coming up to this wall here and then having this hallway space. So, since this line is no longer there, what we have to do, we're going to white it out. A little more. Okay, so we've got it where we've taken that away. Okay, now from this junction box, we've come this way around over to here. Now you can barely get in here with a ladder, but you've got about 1.5 feet of room. So you can put a junction box on this wall here. And then there's an underground here. And we have like a stub up on this plan. So So that goes up the wall into the junction box and then underground and conduit to this furniture. Now this note, we talked about this note 9 when we did the power plan and talked about that. And that is not a change. We just have to show the junction box here. And anything with this underground, we really don't have to make a reference to on that. That covers what I want to show on the power plan here for redlining. And again, this is not a complete redline of the power plan. There's still some more to be done, but I want to show you some things on the lighting plan now, because we get into a couple of different things with that. We can learn some things there and also learn a slightly different style of doing the redlining. Okay, now over here, I want to point out here, it says circuit E4 or panel E4 circuit 11. And it has its own home run for these lights here. What we did, we said, you know, we have a circuit 9 all the way down at the bottom that's having its own home run. So let's put those in the same conduit, because circuit 9 comes all the way up to here for its last junction box for its lights. So we'll just extend this pipe, redline it up to here, put it in the junction box, and then we'll hit this switch with it and come out through here up to these lights, and we'll run our circuit 11 in that same box. And I put a note here out to the side, home run with circuit 9. So you can look for that. Okay, we're going to go down and look what we did at circuit 9 to that home run as well. We made our home run to circuit 9 down here anyway. That's how it was built. And we've got a red line that says, okay, E4 circuit 9 and 11. So that means here we've added circuit 11 with a note, and it would probably be a good idea to go ahead and write it in here. But it gets into the light fixture here. So you have to at least indicate it somewhere like this, and too close to the light fixture, that's probably why I didn't write it the last time. Now, remember the other diagrams? We were making red lines all the way back to the panel like this, and here I just left the arrow. The reason I did that, I want to show another style, and again, it's pretty obvious. If you look at the plan, from here it's pretty much a straight line all the way back to panel E4. This was the first junction box from the panel, if you recall, on circuits 9 and 11. So it's really not necessary. If they go and open the tile, they're going to find that junction box there. That covers that part of it. Okay, now I want to go back up towards the restroom area. Now we're kind of been running you around a bit, but we have to kind of look at these things individually because they need to be drawn separately. But again, at each place, I hope you're taking this opportunity to learn things and to get the most out of this lesson. So thank you for your patience. So let's go up to the restroom area. Okay, look at this emergency light right here. If you follow this conduit all the way down through these lights in the junction box, once you go down a little bit, you'll see it's panel E4 circuit 1. And you'll have a home run for that. Okay, so that means that that's the only circuit we're dealing with, and we didn't put any other circuits in that conduit. So we really don't have to indicate that as circuit 1 because everything on here is circuit 1. Okay, now here's where it gets a little tricky, and here's where the electrician made some changes. You can see I've got a line that I whited out that goes into this bathroom to feed it, because the hot would be going to the lights. But we need a switch leg, so we'd have to take them through the switch, bring the switch leg back, and this gets packed in together. And it also whited out here to the fan, and again it'd be the same thing where the hot goes to it and we got to switch it and come back. And they're maybe switching it through the lights, which you really don't like to do. So here's what we did. We went ahead, let this go to the emergency light. We ran a conduit into this switch. Now remember, this is all hard lid here, so we can't have any junction boxes in the ceiling. Okay, but we have a hot leg here. We're going to run to here, into this wall, okay? So the junction box is here and here, so we get to each of these switches, so we're good with those. Okay, now, we also came out of here with a hot to this emergency light, and that was circuit 1. And we came out of here across to this emergency light, and that's circuit 1. These are on the constantly hot, so that takes care of those. Now that we're here at the switch, we keep this part of it the same, where the switch powers the lights, and then one comes off on the same circuit for the fan. And the same thing was done here. Here's our conduit to the fan, and then here is the one for the lights. Originally they had conduit coming across through here to get the power over here into the switch, but we didn't want to run our power through all of these lights. We wanted to run it to the switch first and then through the lights. The drawing that the architect draws just shows everything on the circuit that has to be connected together. It's up to you to choose the route, because you're going to look at it, you're going to find out all the structural members and how the walls are built, and you'll find the best way to do that. So the architect is just basically supposed to show you all of these things are on this circuit and they're controlled by these switches, and these are the locations. So it's up to you to go through and make this plan work the best way. And that is why you are going to redline it, so that you show what you did, so that the customer can look at it and understand it. Okay, so that pretty much covers what we needed to do with the red line diagrams. The red line diagrams, again, they show exactly how you built this building, this build out. And again, if you can keep track of those as you're building it, it would be much easier to do than to try and go back at the very end. Here we are at the conclusion of this somewhat lengthy lesson, and congratulations for making it all the way through, and you should be congratulated for that. If you're diligent about studying and wanting to learn and taking the time to go through this lesson, then congratulations, and we really appreciate your efforts. And again, one of our goals at the start was to teach you the essential basic fundamental elements of how to read commercial blueprints for the commercial electrician. And we feel that by putting a set of blueprints in your hand and by giving you the video material, it was the fastest and quickest way for you to get the essential basics. But my real goal in creating this lesson was to have you have the confidence in yourself that someday if somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, can you build this?" You take those plans in your hand and say, "Yes, I can." Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. Please click on the like and subscribe buttons so that I can continue to make more videos like this. If you find this video helpful, please consider donating using the PayPal link below. Thank you.